The Movie Preview Critic. Informing and entertaining your movie world.
Last week, I called the local IMAX theater to reserve tickets for The Dark Knight on July 18th at midnight. Because you probably did the same, you know what happens next. The customer service rep tells me,
"Pardon me, sir, but are you a dumbass? Did you actually think tickets were gonna be available? That is sold out, douchebag."
As I'm about to hang up, he says,
"Due to high demand, we have added a 3 a.m. showing."
Wow, that's the first time I've ever heard of a 3 a.m. showing for any movie. And because my friends and I are pretty hardcore about seeing it on IMAX opening night, I say, sure, I'll take 5 tickets for that one.
You asshole, that one's sold out too.
After he calms down, I tell him thanks for the info and am about to hang up when he says,
"We've also added a 7 a.m. showing."
Let me guess, that one's sold out too?
What are you, a jerk off? Who sees a movie at 7 a.m.? Oh, that's right, the losers who couldn't get into the midnight or 3 a.m. shows.
That's when I truly realized how badly the whole of moviedom wants to see The Dark Knight. There hasn't been this much anticipation for any movie since The Phantom Menace. So because we're all shitting our pants in excitement and anticipation, let's take a journey through the history of Batmania and the whole of comicdom to understand exactly what's happening here. Let's start with 1938, the beginning of the golden age of comics, when Superman and the next year Batman are created. They establish the patterns for comics for the next 20 years. The superhero, the villains, the powers, the storylines, and most importantly, the level of imagination. In those days, comics became the perfect home for humanity's fantasies. It was the only medium that could contain them, give them shape, and do them any justice. Why? Because the novel was too boring, just a bunch of words. It was very adult and very old-fashioned. These ideas of superheroes and powers were created by youthful imaginings and aimed at audiences young enough to believe in the magic of what-if possibilities, especially with the recent 40-year-old creation of movies at that time. People in those days were growing accustomed to and demanding more visual entertainment. Movies would have been the best home for these daydreams, but in 1938, cinema is nowhere near advanced enough to fully realize the potential of these wish fulfillments. Just take a look at the first moving picture version of Batman, made in 1943, as a 15-part serial produced by Columbia Pictures. In it, Batman and Robin fight a Japanese spy named Dr. Daka, who is trying to turn people into zombies. It's just as as you'd expect. I mean, look at how out of shape Robin looks. Holy cottage cheese, Batman! Looks like someone hasn't been going to the Bat Gym. No doubt this early attempt at bringing the Cape Crusader to life inspired and informed the legendary TV series of the late 1960s. Everything that was good and not so great about that TV show can be found in the Batman movie, which was made in 1966, in between seasons 1 and 2. It's basically an hour-and-a-half long episode. Here's what happens. Bruce and Dick pull up to the mansion and shoot down the bat poles into the Batcave because some is going down somewhere. Dressed as Batman and Robin, they drive off to the Batcopter. Batman tries to jump on a boat, but oh shit, it disappears. As Batman is pulled out of the water, he notices a shark's on him. He shakes it off with some bat spray, and it blows up, because the Penguin, Joker, Riddler, and Catwoman stuffed it full of dynamite, hoping to blow him up. After a press conference where they tell reporters to calm down, Batman, Robin, Commissioner Gordon, and Chief O'Hara review the super criminals behind the last crime. Back at the Batcave, the dynamic duo realize that the ship that disappeared was a hologram, and using the Batboat, they return to the location of the disappeared boat. They discover a holographic projector on a buoy, and are magnetized to it by the supervillains, who are in a submarine below waiting for them. They launch torpedoes, but Batman and Robin escape. Once back on shore, Batman calls the Pentagon and discovers that a non-nuclear sub has been sold recently. Just then, the Riddler sends Batman a clue. Back at police headquarters, they crack the code and realize that the super criminals are planning to take over the entire world. We learn the villains are planning to take out the United Nations Security Council. But first, they have to get rid of Batman. So they plan to kidnap Bruce Wayne using the Catwoman disguised as a Russian reporter named Kitka. So Bruce meets Kitka and they decide to go on a date. But first, Bruce tells Alfred and Dick to follow and monitor them just in case the criminals Batman will decide to attack. So it's off to some bat whining and dining, which eventually leads back to her place. As Bruce is putting on the moves, Robin turns off the monitoring device because he's getting a funny feeling in his pants, and that's especially awkward because he's watching the steamy action with his 90-year-old butler, who wants him to leave it on. As Bruce is about to round first base, the villains show up, riding flying umbrellas, and cockblock him. Alfred convinces Robin to turn the softcore back on, and they discover Bruce and Kicka have been kidnapped. Back at the hideout, the outlaws wait for Batman as Bruce figures out a way to escape. Bruce returns home, changes into Batman gear, and drives off with Robin back to the villain's hideout. In the meantime, the Penguin has devised a plan to infiltrate the Batcave with some of his henchmen, who he evaporates into salt dust using the dehydrator. Yes, that's what it's called. As Batman and Robin arrive at the hideout, they discover a bomb, which Batman runs around with and eventually throws into the water. The Penguin shows up, is knocked out by Batman, taken back to the Batcave, where he rehydrates his employees, and they promptly get their asses kicked. With the Penguin captured, the dynamic duo come up with a new plan. Take the Penguin out of the Batcave, allow him to steal the Batmobile, which has a homing device, and then follow him to the villain's submarine hideout. That's exactly what happened. They follow Penguin using the Batcycle and the Batchopper, but get shot out of the sky by the Riddler's Polaris missiles. But thankfully, they land in a pile of foam rubber. Yes, this actually happens in the movie. Then they race on foot to the United Nations building, but they get there too late. The villains have dehydrated the Security Council. Don't worry, because Batman and Robin get into the Batboat, find the sub, and blast it with a Bazooka a few times until it surfaces, and then kick some villain ass on deck. But unfortunately, the entire Security Council, which is stored as salt dust in separate vials, gets mixed together, and our heroes have to go back to the Batcave and separate them. Of course they do, and then they return to the UN building and rehydrate them, using a garden hose. Oh wait, sorry, a bat hose. World celebrates, and Batman and Robin go out the window. Yeah, pretty ridiculous. But that was the show, an innocent, wacky, comical, over-the-top version of the comic book, which up to that date was very 1950s aw gee, aw shucks, black and white, good versus bad with very little shades of gray. I remember watching this on TV, and I have to admit, I thought it was pretty cool. But even my 10-year-old logic thought a few things were a little too bat-diculous. Specifically, the bat everything. Just to cite a few examples: Bat Poles, Bat Cave, Batmobile, Bat Phone, Bat Shopper, Bat Seatbelt, the Bat Fan Club, the Bat Salute, the Bat Thumbs Up, the Bat Radar. Then there's the Bat Story, and the Batposterous Situations and Solutions. How about this classic scene? Batman is lowered into the water, and when he comes up, there's a shark on his leg. Also, when creating a supercriminal villain club, make sure you clearly mark and separate your belongings. Next, let's not forget the Bat dialogue.
Listen to these riddles. Tell me if you interpret them as I do. 1. What has yellow skin and rights?
A ballpoint banana.
Right.
I really don't know how to defend this movie so bad it's good quality. You could say it was 42 years ago and audiences weren't as sophisticated as they are today, so maybe this kitschiness was acceptable because it was fresh, but it sure got old fast. Batman was on twice a week, and after 2 years viewers started complaining, if you've seen one episode, you've seen them all. It might have been burnout or just silliness that made audiences tire of the show, but it also might have been the social and political revolutions occurring outside the living room window between commercial breaks. The Batman TV series was born from the spirit of innocence of the 1950s, which really spilled over into the early 60s. It really wasn't until 1966 when the 60s became the 60s. Maybe at that point, the pow whap thwack playfulness of this two-dimensional Technicolor incarnation of Batman didn't seem relevant anymore. It was at this time that comics entered a silver age. Spider-Man, X-Men, Iron Man, and the rise of Marvel marked an era where personality conflicts and moral dilemmas emerged in storylines. Before, superheroes were examples of the people we wanted to become: handsome, strong, smart, truthful, and perfectly moral. During the 60s and into the 70s, they represented who we were: flawed, conflicted, misunderstood, confused, emotional, angry, guilty, and impulsive. Marvel led the way in this shift from ideal heroes to real people. 2D was becoming 3D. And while in the comic book world, heroes became human and current, TV and film lived in the nostalgic past. In the late 70s and early 80s, Superman was the only major comic book hero to be significantly adapted into film, and the first 2 installments nailed it pretty well, blending emotion and action, heroism and humanity. But then, parts 3 and 4 were made by a blockbuster sequel-obsessed Hollywood, and these signs of evolution in the movie superhero genre were stalled. It was up to the comic book world to set the example once again. This would lead to an emerging talented director, Tim Burton, successfully reinventing the Caped Crusader by taking the modern-day sensibilities of the comic world and honoring the campiness of the TV series.
Holy disrespect, Batman!
I beg your pardon, movie preview critic, but I think you owe us an apology.
Adam West and Bruce Ward?
That's right. We can't take your criticism anymore. Either you retract your opinions regarding our classic show, or...
What, you're gonna kick my ass?
Precisely.
Right, but before you guys get into whack pow mode, I want you to meet someone. New Batman, say hi to the old Batmen.
Word of me!
Only adult diapers, Batman. I think I just myself.
Me too, old chum. Quick, Robin, back to the Batcave for a fresh change of undergarments. Consider our quarrel resolved, movie preview critic. For this new Batman speaks to a culture and fan base we just can't relate to anymore.
Word of me!
And now, I just took a bat pee-pee.
In 1986, the comic book world was radically changed by two writers, Frank Miller and Alan Moore. The sonic boom of creativity and character complexity they ushered in began the modern age of comics, also known as the Dark Age. The two books they produced that marked this shift were The Dark Knight Returns and The Watchmen. The Dark Knight Returns asked a simple question: what if Batman got old? The Watchmen posed its own brilliant ponderance. If superheroes are the ones that watch over us, who's watching over them? This began the popularity of the anti-hero. And this is where Tim Burton stepped in. He had just made two hugely successful films, Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Beetlejuice, the last of which starred Michael Keaton, who would be his choice to play Batman over other bigger names like Mel Gibson, Harrison Ford, Charlie Sheen, and even Bill Murray. A lot of people weren't happy about this choice, especially since Keaton was known as more of a comedic actor and not the biggest star in the world. But Burton wanted someone unexpected in the role, kind of like Christopher Reeve in Superman. It got so bad that 50,000 comic book fans sent protest letters to Warner Brothers. But Tim knew what he was doing. He was taking the dark tone spreading through comicdom and incorporating that along with his developing gothic cartoonish film style. This seemed a perfect fit for honoring the campiness of the 60s TV show and making it relevant for modern day audiences. The anticipation was high, and on June 23rd, 1989, I remember waiting in the biggest movie line I'd ever seen at that time to get a glimpse of Batman Redux. Here's what followed. A family walks in an alley and gets robbed by some homeless dudes. As the derelicts, yes, I just used the word derelicts, count the money, Batman makes a memorable appearance and kicks their asses. In the meantime, Harvey Dent, played by Lando Calrissian, is the district attorney trying to root out crime boss Carl Grissom. Meanwhile, Jack Napier, the soon-to-be Joker, is introduced as Grissom's muscle man, who's also the boss's girl. Lieutenant Eckhart investigates the latest bat attack, while a reporter named Knox investigates Eckhart. At the newspaper, Knox meets Vicky Vale, who's got a thing for Batman. Back at Grissom's headquarters, Jack, wearing the purple soon-to-be Joker trademark suit, gets sent on a job that's really a trap because Grissom knows he's his lady and he wants him out of the way. At Bruce Wayne's fundraiser party, he meets Vicky Vale, but is interrupted by news that something big is going down at the local warehouse. Eckhart, under orders from Grissom, swarms the warehouse with police officers ready to kill Jack. Jack realizes what's going on and is just about to escape when Batman shows up and he falls into a vat of toxic waste. The next evening, Bruce and Vicky enjoy dinner together. Meanwhile, Jack visits a plastic surgeon who tells him the bad news about his face. Back at Wayne Manor, things heat up. Back at Grissom's headquarters, Jack introduces himself as the Joker and kills Grissom. As Bruce wonders if he remembered to use bat protection with Vicky Vale, the Joker gets jealous of Batman's news coverage. Vicky leaves Wayne Manor and Grissom's girl discovers what's happened to Jack. The Joker holds a meeting of the underworld and announces himself as the boss, while Knox is jealous that Vale is hooking up with Bruce instead of him, and Vale, already becoming a psycho-stalker girlfriend, follows Bruce and sees him place two roses in an alley. Then the Joker takes out Grissom's would-be successor in front of the press, and then gets pissed that Batman is still stealing the headlines. Alfred tells Bruce he should settle down with Vicky Vale, who is doing some research about the alley where Bruce put the flowers, as the Joker is doing some research on Vicky Vale, and also planning to terrorize Gotham by poisoning cosmetic products, as Batman is doing research on Jack Napier. Meanwhile, Harvey Dent tries to figure out what's inside the cosmetics and organize the anniversary festivities. Then Vicky calls Bruce to let them know she'll be late for their museum date, and Bruce responds that they don't have one. That's because the Joker is the one who set it up. He knocks everyone out, vandalizes the artwork, tries to charm her, and is interrupted by Batman, who saves her. Car chase ensues, finally showing off the Batmobile redesign, and he takes her back to the Batcave, where he provides her with a list of contaminated products and a way for the population to stay safe. Then knocks her out, and she wakes up back in her apartment. Pissed that Batman foiled his plan, the Joker officially decides to go after him. Alfred tells Bruce that he's been treating Vicky badly, so he goes to visit her, and the Joker shows up too, shooting Bruce but not killing him, then leaving Vicky a present. Back at the newspaper, she learns how Bruce's parents died. As the mayor makes a speech postponing the 200th anniversary party, the Joker announces that he's gonna throw one instead and dump 20 million in cash on the crowd. He also throws out a challenge to Batman to be there. As Bruce watches, he has a flashback of his parents' death, and Alfred shows Vicky into the Batcave, where she and Bruce have a heart-to-heart that ends in Bruce getting into Batman mode and destroying the shit at the Joker's hideout. But it's all for nothing because the Joker's in a helicopter on the way to the anniversary party. As he dumps money on the crowd, he prepares to gas them by exploding the parade balloon. Just then, Batman shows up in the Batwing and steals the Joker's balloons. The Joker shoots down the Batwing and takes Vicky to the top of a cathedral. Batman follows them, kicks the Joker's ass, and he falls to his death. Commissioner Gordon announces the Joker's men have been rounded up. Vicky gives Knox a nice guy's finished last kiss. The bat signal is revealed. Vicky is driven home by Alfred, who tells her Bruce will be coming home late, and we see Batman standing on top of a building, looking badass with the bat signal in the background. As the credits rolled, everyone in the audience cheered and uttered, "Holy shit." Tim Burton had done it. He had balanced the modern-day dark tone with the spirit of the 60s show. Looking back today, there was plenty good about it. First, and most obviously, the Joker. Jack Nicholson's performance was obviously influenced by Cesar Romero's 1960s Joker, but he also made him a little darker. Second, the redesign of the Bat Everything. The Batmobile was hardcore awesome. It was like a missile with tail fins. The Batcave, bigger and more realistic. And of course, the Batsuit. How can anyone take a dude in tights seriously anymore? This new Batsuit was a tougher, meaner skin. Third, Gotham City's redesign. In the 60s show, there really wasn't any city. It was small scale. And even though this movie was shot on the lot, it still had a grander feel to it. Gotham officially became a character. Fourth, classic lines and images.
What are you? I'm Batman.
Wait till they get a load of me.
Watching it today, there's really just one area that's aged badly. I'm not going to explain it, let's just watch.
The new king in town. Young and old.
Was anyone else cringing? In the late 80s, stuff like that was fine, but today, it's just bad. Ultimately, it became the first movie ever to earn $100 million in the first 10 days of release, and went on to make over $400 million worldwide. Of course, there would be a sequel, and thankfully, Tim Burton would be back in charge. So 3 years later, in 1992, we got Batman Returns.
It opens on a mansion. Is it Wayne Manor? No, it belongs to the Penguin's parents, and they're not so happy about the way their son looks. So they take a walk in the park and send him floating down the sewers. 33 years later, Max Schreck, played by Christopher Walken, is in a meeting with the mayor arguing for permission to build a power plant, which he's denied. Max and the mayor go down to the street where they lay a Christmas tree, but are interrupted by the Penguin's henchmen. You know what that means? It's time to call Batman, who shows up and starts kicking some big-time ass. In the middle of all this, he saves Selina Kyle, Max Schreck's secretary, from a criminal clown dude. As Batman calms things down, Max is captured by the Penguin, and they come to an agreement to give the Penguin a PR makeover. Max returns to his office and discovers that Selina has found and read secret documents, revealing that the power plant is actually going to be stealing power from Gotham City instead of providing it. He pushes her out a window and she falls to her death, but is brought back to life by the magic power of cat kisses. This seems to make her violently creative, as she goes home and trashes her place, then makes a Catwoman outfit. The next day at a press conference, the mayor's baby is kidnapped, then given to the Penguin so he looks like a hero. As society starts to accept him, Bruce Wayne doubts him and tries to find out the truth. Penguin discovers his name, Oswald Cobblepot, and that his parents are dead. He publicly forgives them for what they did to him, and the people of Gotham City love him. Meanwhile, Catwoman makes her first action appearance as she saves a woman in an alley from getting mugged and raped. As Bruce and Max argue over the need of a power plant, Selina walks in, surprising Max, then walks Bruce to the elevator, at which point he asks her out on a date. Elsewhere, Max meets Penguin and tells him he's going to help make him the next mayor, so that he can approve his power plant. To do that, they need to create some chaos so the people demand a new leader. Buildings start exploding, and Batman arrives to bring the peace. This eventually leads him to the Penguin and the Catwoman, fighting on a rooftop until she stabs him in the side and he punches her off the roof. The Penguin announces his run for mayor, and then teams up with Catwoman to defeat Batman by framing him to look like a criminal. And just like the Joker called Batman out to attend his anniversary parade in the first movie, so here, the Penguin requests that Batman attend the relighting of the Christmas tree, so he can keep the peace. But before that, Bruce and Selina go out on a date, which ends up back at his place. As they heavy pet on a couch, news on the TV interrupts. It looks like evidence points to Batman as the kidnapper of the tree-lighting, button-pushing hottie. They call it a night, and each head out to the ceremony as their alter egos. Batman parks his car, activates shields, but Penguin's men know the frequency and gain access to the Batmobile. Batman is about to rescue the hottie when Catwoman attacks and takes the girl to the roof. Back at the Batmobile, Penguin's men are rewiring. Back on the roof, Penguin pushes the hottie off to her death just as Batman is near the ledge. The people below see him, and now it looks like he's the bad guy. As Batman drives home, Penguin activates the remote control override features that his henchmen installed and takes the Batmobile for a joyride of destruction with Batman still in it. The police give chase, Batman deactivates Penguin's control and escapes. The next day, Penguin gives a speech for the press, and Bruce interrupts by playing a recording of the Penguin insulting the people of Gotham City. Everyone turns against him, and he's forced to return to the sewers. Obsessed by anger and revenge, he sets in motion his ultimate plan, to kill all the firstborn sons of Gotham. In the meantime, Bruce attends a party thrown by Max, where he dances with Selina, and as they're exchanging romantic whispers, they realize they're alter ego enemies. Before they can make sense of it, the Penguin crashes the party and kidnaps Max, and awaits the train of firstborn sacrifices to arrive. But Batman rescues the children, and Penguin goes even crazier. He puts penguins under mind control and arms them with missiles to destroy the entire city. Batman approaches with a Batboat/sub, reverses the mind control Penguin, sending them back to the Penguin's lair, and as the Penguin is trying to get away, smashes his rubber ducky car boat. Penguin knocks the missile remote control out of Batman's hand, presses it, and the missiles launch into his hideout instead of at the city. At the same time, bats fly out of the Batboat sub, attacking the Penguin. He crashes through a window and falls to his death. A final confrontation between Batman, Max, and Catwoman takes place, where Batman rips off his mask, hoping to save Selina, but it's no good. Selina kills Max and herself. Or so it seems, as the movie ends with the bat signal and Catwoman rising up to look at it.
The main adjective used to describe this sequel has always been dark. What isn't mentioned is the heightened level of campiness that opened the door for Joel Schumacher to take the silliness to the extreme. Because of that, we have to give some of the responsibility for the downfall of the 90s Batman to Tim Burton.
Hey, dude, if you continue, I'll be forced to scissor hands your tongue out of your movie reviewing mouth.
Prepare to feel the power of Scissorhands' vengeance.
Tim, you don't really have scissor hands. It's more like a pair of scissors in your hands. Joel Schumacher. I'm tired of everyone blaming me for destroying the 1990s Batman.
Stay back, or I'll cut you.
I'd believe you if those scissors weren't kid-safe. He's right, Tim. Look at the round edges.
Oh, shit. Well, do you have any colored construction paper? I just got an idea for my next movie.
Batman Returns should have been a great sequel. While there was definitely more action and destruction, the tone, while trying to be darker, ended up over the top, circusy, and closer to the 60s Batman than its 1989 predecessor, thereby establishing a blueprint for the forthcoming sequels. First, big stars and multiple villains. Second, the acting and dialogue, especially Max Schreck's son, who seems to be doing his best worst Christopher Walken impersonation.
Dad, Mr. Mayor, it's time to go down and bring joy to the masses.
Third, the return of silliness. Penguin's henchmen rewire the Batmobile so Penguin can take control, and here's how Batman solves the problem. Sure, he just punches a hole through the bottom of the Batmobile, feels around, and pulls the device off. Fourth, the props and stagey feel of Gotham. If we look at the Penguin's entrance at the party, it obviously influences the later films. Then there's the Catwoman-Batman relationship, which was explored in the 1966 Batman movie.
It approaches a climax.
And yet, not so fast. Be more slow.
Thankfully, Returns explored this relationship a bit more seriously, but it failed to reveal much of Bruce Wayne's character. And this is the biggest problem with Batman Returns. Sure, he falls in love with Catwoman and tears off his mask, but he doesn't question himself or explore his motivations. If anything, Batman Returns, like the first movie, explores the villain psyches. Between these first two movies, we learned how the Joker, Catwoman, and Penguin became who they are, with the Penguin being the most explored of these three. And that's why Returns seems so dark. It essentially focuses on a deformed baby who was thrown away by his rich parents, grew up in the sewers amongst penguins, and became so twisted that he wanted to kill all the firstborn sons of Gotham in revenge. That's pretty f***ed up. That could have been a horror movie, but in the hands of the outcast sympathetic Burton, it feels more like a visually interesting and emotionally harmless freak show circus ride. In the end, Batman Returns opened strong, breaking the record for a 3-day opening weekend with almost 50 million. However, when it was all said and done, it had made 145 million less than the original. The studio blamed the heavy mature tone for the box office, claiming that the darkness didn't appeal to children. For the next movie, producers wanted to go lighter in tone, so Burton, who didn't want to direct again, became a producer, and Joel Schumacher was chosen as his replacement. Here's what's interesting. Joel Schumacher wanted the next Batman movie to be based on Batman Year One, written by modern comic age pioneer Frank Miller. This would have been a prequel and origin story. See, I tried to do the right thing. I know, Joel, but you gave in. You didn't fight for it.
I would have walked away. I would have said, F you, man, take your corporate agenda and shove it. This is art, man, not commercial bull for little kids.
Tim, you do have a producer's credit on Batman Forever.
Oh. Look at the time! I gotta go watch Mars Attacks!
It should be pointed out that it wasn't just some greedy producers influencing this shift in style. It was American society. The 90s were the most prosperous decade of the century. Just like the 1920s and the 50s, there wasn't any major war going on, the economy was booming, and the stock market .com explosion made everyone feel that life was good and that the good times were gonna last. Corporate mergers, insane profits, excess spending. It was an economic orgy. To see what was going on, you just had to look at the comic book world, which had matured hero storytelling into darker and more complex areas. Here, it became seduced by the gold rush of the 90s and stagnated. Comics became focused on profits and started creating collector's issues. The focus was on gimmicks instead of growth, on expansion of revenue, not refinement of characters. So 3 years after Batman Returns in 1995, we got Batman Forever. And this is what happened.
Batman gears up and blasts off to downtown Gotham, because Two-Face is holding some guards hostage in a bank, but first meets Chase Meridian, the new hottie who wants to him. He crashes Two-Face's robbery, but realizes it's a trap when he gets locked up in a safe that starts filling with acid. But don't worry, because the Bat-Belt has a tool for every occasion. Here, he uses it to save the guard and return the safe to its place. Batman climbs into the helicopter and crashes into the Statue of Liberty just as Two-Face escapes. The next day, Bruce Wayne meets Edward Nygma, an employee of Wayne Enterprises working on an invention that creates a virtual reality experience for the audience. Bruce turns the project down, and Nygma is devastated. Later that night, the Bat Signal calls Batman to the roof, where a horny Chase Meridian waits for him in lingerie. As things get hot, Commissioner Gordon shows up, wondering what's happened, and Batman leaves, because he has to go back to the Batcave to nurse a case of the blue balls. Back at Wayne Enterprises, Nygma tests his advice on his boss, drains his IQ, and then kills him. Back at Wayne Manor, Bruce watches a news report about Two-Face because we, the audience, need some backstory. Then he shows up to survey the crime scene at Wayne Enterprises and receives a first message from the Riddler. Then Nygma creates a new riddle and leaves it on the gate of Wayne Manor, even though he just gave Bruce a riddle a minute ago. Meanwhile, Bruce visits Chase Meridian for some therapy, which ends with him asking her out on a date to the circus, where we meet the Flying Graysons. After they do some tricks that haven't excited audiences since the 1960s, Two-Face shows up causing trouble, and the Graysons are the only ones that can save the day, sacrificing themselves for the safety of the audience. Only Dick, the soon-to-be Robin, is left alive. Now an orphan, Bruce takes him in. Later, Bruce has a memory flashback to his parents' death. His repressed memories are beginning to surface. But the self-discovery has to wait, because the bat symbol calls. motorcycles. On his way to stop trouble, Two-Face and the gang ambush him. This leads to a lane car chase that ends with the Batmobile riding up the side of a building. In the meantime, Nigma searches for a villain name and comes up with the Riddler, who then visits Two-Face and proposes a partnership to take over Gotham. They go off and rob a diamond store and a casino as Dick and Alfred do laundry, where Dick shows off his skills. Wow, that was stupid. Bruce gets the next riddle, and Dick begins to wonder about the only locked door in Wayne Manor. Then Nigma introduces the Nigma Tech 3D box, and everyone buys one and plugs in, releasing brain fart gas into the atmosphere that is sucked up by Nigma's super machine Brave Wayne collector that gets beamed into the Riddler's brain, making him really constipated. I mean, look at his face. We all know what that expression means. And he is kind of sitting on a throne. Then Dick discovers the Batcave, as Bruce is at Chase Meridian's looking to do some cave exploring of his own. Alfred calls and tells him that Dick has stolen the Batmobile. Yeah, I know. You'd think it'd have some kind of alarm or fancy security features, but whatever. He drives it around, and he tries to save some girl from a gang that hangs in an alley where there are only black lights for some reason. He kicks some ass and saves the girl until reinforcements show up, and then Batman has to come and save him. Dick punches Batman, blaming him for his parents' death, and they argue in the Batcave about getting revenge on Two-Face, and the pitfalls of living in the life of vigilante justice. Bruce and Chase go to a party where Nigma is the toast of the town. Bruce gets his mind read as Two-Face breaks up the party. Batman shows up, kicks some ass on the dance floor. Dick gets a costume. Batman chases Two-Face, gets trapped underground where Two-Face tries to burn him, but escapes and is covered by a shitload of rock. But thankfully, all it takes to save him is Robin's hand. Okay, fine, we'll go with that. Then back at the Batcave, they argue about becoming partners. Alfred tells Bruce to give the kid a chance and encourages him to hook up with Chase. Like a scene from a soap opera, Batman shows up outside of her window with the curtains ruffling, because the movie is really starting to blow hard. They kiss, but Chase tells him she likes Bruce more than him. Meanwhile, Nigma and Two-Face learn that Bruce Wayne is Batman, who is arguing again with Dick about the negatives of revenge and killing Two-Face and the fact that Bruce wants to quit because he wants to settle down with Chase, who he meets later, and his memories resurface. She kisses him and realizes he's Batman. At the same time, Nigma and Two-Face show up, knock Alfred out, and storm Wayne Manor. The Riddler finds the Batcave, blows it up, knocks Bruce out, and kidnaps Chase. The next day, Alfred tells Bruce what happened, and the Riddler taunts Chase about Batman coming to save her. Bruce and Alfred crack the Riddler's conundrum and figure out that Edward Nigma and the Riddler are the same person. In the Batcave, Bruce gears up as Batman and Robin show up in new costumes. Batman heads out in the Batplane, and Robin in the Batboat. Commissioner Gordon celebrates Batman flying into action, and Batman gives him the thumbs up from a speeding Batplane in the middle of the night, as if the Commissioner could see that. But whatever. Two-Face and Riddler have linked the game Battleship to real weapons, and they destroy the dynamic duo's vehicles. Both survive, and infiltrate the Riddler's hideout palace brainwave drain headquarters, which rises up like a theme park ride. Robin fights Two-Face, has a chance to kill him, but helps him instead, and Two-Face captures him. Batman climbs up to the top of the hideout, discovers that the Riddler and Two-Face have trapped both Chase and Robin, and he must choose which one to save, something used later in The Dark Knight and Spider-Man 1. He chooses both as he destroys Nigma's machine, saves them as they fall down what seems to be an endless hole, but then Two-Face shows up, flips his coin to decide the fate of his foes, but before the results come in, Batman pulls out a stash of coins, tosses them in the air, which freaks out Harvey, and he falls to his death, and a coin lands in his hand. Come on, Joel, are you serious? You know, 13 years later, that does seem kind of ridiculous. Ridiculous. Do you know how improbable that was? I'm sorry, Mr. MPC, and to good movie lovers around the world, that was ridiculous. I think the laws of physics deserve an apology too, Joel. Cause with that scene right there, you just in the without any lubrication or phone call the next day. Okay, you're right. I apologize to the laws of physics.
I, Sir Isaac Newton, discoverer of classical physics, accept your apology.
Great. Now that that's out of the way, let's finish this movie. That's it! I can't take any more of this! Arnold!
Everybody freeze! Don't make a move, movie preview critic! I'm putting the rest of this review on ice!
You're putting this review on ice?
Yes, your luxury ocean liner, the SS Titanic, is about to sink because you just hit an iceberg named Victor Freeze.
That's actually not a bad one-liner. Definitely not as horrible as your dialogue from Batman and Robin.
I wouldn't say my lines were horrible.
No, they were pretty shitty. I'd say embarrassing.
What are you doing, you blue slushy-colored Christmas tree nincompoop? Freeze him already!
I can't. Before I kill anybody, I have to say an ice, freeze, cold related pun. Some sort of clever one-line play on words.
Well, say something.
It's time to kick some ice.
Sorry, hold it. You used that line already in the movie.
Really? I don't think so.
Here, take a look.
Let's kick some ice.
I mean, I don't think it should count if you're reusing your lines.
Who cares? Just shoot him.
No, he's right. I'm Victor Freeze, a scientific genius. I should be able to come up with some catchphrases centered around the concept of cold temperature.
Then just say something and shoot.
Okay, how about, hello, my name is Freeze. Know it well, for it is the sound of your doom.
Sorry, dude. Turn the weapon off. That's another line that you took from Batman and Robin.
Allow me to break the ice. My name is Freeze. Learn it well, for it's the chilling sound of your doom.
That is some good acting. I don't know about you, but I'm scared.
Just think of a quick one-liner already, you idiot, and shoot him.
Okay, but you don't have to call me names. Just give me a moment. Those first two were off the top of my head. No, I already used that one. That's no good. This is actually pretty difficult. Okay, I've got it. Knock, knock.
Okay, who's there?
What's my favorite song?
What's my favorite song? Who?
Ice, ice, baby.
No, that's actually kinda okay.
Not bad, Victor.
I told you I could do it.
Yes, not too shabby, but I want to see the rest of this review, so I'm going to have to intervene.
What are you going to do, Goldilocks?
How about this? Behold the power of gravity!
Does anybody else hear that? What is that sound?
Somebody help me. I'm being attacked by a delicious symbol of knowledge. Seriously, guys, I'm feeling lightheaded. I can't breathe in here.
If everyone behaves themselves, I shall remove the apple using the reverse power of gravity. Once the review has come to a conclusion. Joel, Mr. Freeze, sounds like a reasonable offer to me. Can you guys agree to that?
I'll do it. I'll do it now. I'll behave. I won't try to stop the review anymore.
Oh, alright. I'll stop trying to fight this review. Go ahead. Continue ripping me a new ass.
That was close. Now, back to Batman Forever.
Batman Enigma shares some final thoughts about being Batman. Chase Meridian visits Edward in a mental institution because his doctor says he knows the identity of Batman, but he doesn't and is just plain crazy. She meets Bruce, they kiss and say goodbye. Then Batman and Robin run on the roof with a back signal in the background because it looks kinda cool.
Alright, let's start with the major issues. First, the Batmobile and Batsuit. Am I the only one who thinks that they were fine the way they were? Especially the car. The Tim Burton Batmobile was sleek, smooth, dangerous, and intimidating. It was like a panther tiptoeing through the darkness, ready to pounce on bad guys when the time was right. This Batmobile looks like a dildo with a kinky tickler fishtail for extra stimulation. Then there's the Batsuit. Enough has already been said about it, specifically the nipple area. Overall, it's not a big deal, except that the purpose of dressing up as a bat is to intimidate your enemy. It's hard to do that with your nipples showing. And then we have the new Batman. Overall, I think Kilmer, aside from Christian Bale, is the best Bruce Wayne, the billionaire playboy. As Batman, though, Kilmer seems to be always grinning, like the Batsuit is too tight and is giving him a funny feeling down there. I don't buy him as an intimidating crime fighter. For that, Bale gets my vote as the most intimidating Batman, minus his voice. When it comes to that area, Keaton wins. So Kilmer as an action hero doesn't really work, but it could be worse, like George Clooney, which we'll soon see. Along with the redesigned Batman technology, there's Gotham City. In Burton's universe, Gotham has a small, dirty, dangerous feeling. Here, it's louder and overgrown. With the explosion of CGI use in movies, Schumacher's vision has Gotham as a grander, monolithic city. It's almost like he envisioned it after he watched Fritz Lang's Metropolis while reading Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. The over-the-top acting is back with a vengeance. This was hinted at by Danny DeVito's portrayal of the Penguin in Batman Returns, but here Tommy Lee Jones and Ace Ventura battle it out for the one who can ham it up the most. And let's mention the change of actors here for the character of Harvey Dent. Remember in Batman, that role went to Lando Calrissian. Forever picked up where Return left off, casting big stars and having multiple villains. In 1995, movie audiences didn't remember Billy D. Williams. He played Lando in Empire, which was in 1980. Who's going to remember him 15 years later? But if his part in Batman had been bigger, and if it had carried over into Returns, then he would have been brought back. At that time, just like today, you couldn't take a risk on a non-A-list actor. The producers of Forever would try to guarantee box office success by casting the biggest names they could find. So Nicole Kidman, a certified hottie at the time, still rising to stardom and in the middle of her 10-year marriage to Tom Cruise, was given the role of Chase Meridian. One of the most popular actors on the planet, Jim Carrey, coming off a huge box office year, having banked big time in Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber, was the obvious choice for the Riddler. Obviously, we all know these actors have skills, and they can't be blamed for the end result. The problem here is the overall vision. It's very easy to blame it all on Joel Schumacher, but after doing some research, it's clear that his original vision was a little bit darker, but he was under a lot of pressure from the studio to make it as commercial as possible. Remember, the 90s made the corporate corporate greed of the 80s looked like a Mother Teresa organized fundraiser. The stock market was skyrocketing to places only dreamed of in years past, and as more H-Wood studios became part of mega conglomerates, movies became numbers on a balance sheet. Just like the comic book world, the development of mature themes and complex characters and storytelling slowed as the money-making sped up. Another horrible area of Forever is the dialogue. The late 80s and early 90s were the era of the movie one-liner. Forever tried way too hard and failed pretty badly, but unfortunately served only as a warm-up for the verbal diarrhea to come in Batman and Robin. The problem with one-liners is that they eliminate the potential for depth of character. Each person has this sea of memories, emotion, and conflicts bubbling below the surface. When they're faced with conflict, these issues rise to the top in unique ways depending on each person. So each character should say something differently and attach a meaning and subtext to everything they say. Here, there's none of that. And we can't forget the over-the-top action. The bank vault is returned to its exact resting place. Here he jumps off the roof of a building and lands perfectly in the Batmobile. Then later, Two-Face puts the club on a helicopter. What the f***? Other areas of suck include Two-Face's hideout, which is split in two just like his personality. And then there's the Riddler. He sure has dumbed down the level of his riddling. Here's what they used to be like in the 60s, and here's what they were like in the 90s. And seriously, the bat ass and crotch shots, why focus on them? Unless the bat ass shoots out bat gas, and the crotch launches bat missiles with ball grenades, we don't need to see 70-foot close-ups. Looking back 13 years later, it's easy to see the problems of movies clearly, and it's natural to criticize them by trying to impose today's sensibilities. Dark superheroes with deep characterization would have fallen flat in that culture. Only in a post-9/11 world do our superheroes have dark sides and battle with shades of gray. After Batman Forever, the dreams of complex characters born from the cutting-edge comic book world seem to be closer to fantasy than reality. 2 years later, at the height of the internet stock bubble, just before President BC became known as BJ, came a Batman so absurd it made the 60s TV show look like Requiem for a Dream. And that could only be
Bane, here.
It's about time. Get over there and crush the movie preview critic.
Bane, crush, critic.
Long live good movies.